go. Probably the internet was overwhelmed by people logging into the
That was it.
Okay, I'll call
It's our story.
I'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging your treaty one territory and traditional homeland, the Métis Nation. My name is Neil Harden. I'm chairing today's panel, and with me is Maurice Tarian to my left and Brent McIntyre to my far left. The assessor today is Stephen Lovenstein, and the recording secretary is Kara Belshaw. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matter for which revisions is requested have been described in each application, and will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that the applicants or assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order to be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence of one application will be brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed and recorded and will be part of the public record, if the equipment works properly.
Please swear it. Please state your name.
Stephen Lovenstein.
Do you swear the evidence to present today is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Inspector.
Do you swear the evidence to present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, the first item on the docket today is file number 193727, address 1965 Wellington Avenue. And according to the file, you're requesting a non-co-op on this.
I won't be seeking it for this file, no. It's been brought to my attention that the city has mailed it to the wrong address.
Okay, then you can proceed on the valuation.
Okay. So the assessed value is 1 million.
Could you read in the roll number?
Right, the roll number, yeah. The roll number is 07-569-107000. 1965 Wellington Avenue. The assessed value is $1,919,000. This is a rental car company at the airport inside the parkade there that we'll be looking at today. So they have a land area 17,933 square feet. It was built in 2011. The gross floor area is 2,465 square feet, and the leasable area is 768 square feet. Obviously, the leasable area is substantially less than the gross floor area because it's basically indoor parking stalls. So it's 84 parking stalls that are being assessed here today. So we'll turn to page 3 here. These are rent comparables of parkades within the city. They are both heated and unheated. The parkade that we're looking at today is unheated. I'll just quickly turn you to page 11 so you can get a look at the location, the map. It's right at the airport. I'm assuming we've all walked through the airport before with the parkade. And then 12, we can see the picture of the basically the kiosks where they rent the cars out to their customers, and then just some overhead shots of the parkade on page 12 and page 13. So turning back to page 3, it's important to note the expense ratio of the parkades. They're as low as, I guess, 35% 4%, as high as 53%. We're showing that monthly, what they go for, they range from $100 all the way up to $280 or $365 at the Ilbert Street Parkade. There is some casual rates that we're showing there that range from $12 all the way up to $16. And then we just have a stabilized NOI for each property. So again, I kind of want to focus on the expense ratios here of these properties. So turning to page 4, these are actual, the actual income of these, or what they, sorry, this is the actual, what they pay the airport to be in these to be basically operating here. So what we're seeing here is these are the 4 or the 3 other kiosks or rental car companies at the airport. So they're paying, the totals, these are gross totals, but they're paying, for the top comparable number 1, they're paying over $1 million. The comparable number 2 is paying over $1 million, and the comparable number 3 is paying $500,000. So what's interesting about this is that the subject is paying $709,000. So when we look to page 6 of my brief, or I'm sorry, page 7 of my brief, we see that we have a net operating income of $117,936. So basically what that is saying is that if you apply that to the gross revenue, that works out to basically 16.6% of the gross revenue is a net operating income, which means 83.4% is expenses. So it's quite high. They're paying quite a bit here. So as in comparison to the expense ratio of other, I guess, parkades in the city where they don't exceed more than 53%. So what I'm basically saying is that our net operating income is probably quite low in compared to what they're paying. So that being said, we have valued it at 84 stalls. This is on page 7. At $117 per stall for the annual net rent of $117,936. We then capitalize that at a 7% capitalization rate for the capitalized value of $1,685,000. So that's just the parking stalls that they are currently occupying within the parkade. And it's also important to note that if these companies, if the enterprise or the rental car companies were to vacate these parkades, then those 84 spots would be rented out. They would be able to use them, the airport authority would be able to use them to rent them out at whatever rate they felt was fit. Another product of this approach here for the income is also the actual kiosk itself, and that's where the 767 square feet of leasable area comes from. So this is on page 6. We're applying a rent here of $22.63 for potential rent of $17,357. So on page 5, these are just some actual like office. These are gross rents in the airport. So they're gross rents of $47, $46, $51, $51, $46, and $46. So unfortunately, the WA doesn't give us any expenses, so we can't break down what the actual net rents are. But you get an idea of how high the gross rents are in comparison to our net rent at $22.63. I should also note in the top left-hand corner that these statistics are from 2016. This is on page 5, 2016, and on page 4, we have not received any information for the reference here from the airport. So that is something to take into consideration. So that being said, yeah, as I stated, I'm not seeking non-compliance, so the mailer, it is a blank mailer on the back, so we can't gain any expenses or income from there as well. So we feel because of the comparables on page 3 and their expense ratio and showing what they pay per month, and the premium that the airport drives, having a rental car business right beside an airport, we feel that $117 a stall for an 84 stall count, capitalized at 7% for the $1.685 million, including the income of the kiosk at $234,000, we feel that the value of $1,919,000 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed. Thank you.
Okay, any questions?
Yes, I have a few.
Sure.
You spoke about the comparable parking lots on page 3.
Mm-hmm.
So the owner of, say, the top one, 147 Devanche,
Mm-hmm.
that $84.70 per month, that would be money that they would receive? The owners would receive of that parkade?
Yeah, I believe that's per stall, yes.
Okay, and for the subject, you've used $117.
Mm-hmm.
Does the owner of this roll number receive any income from those parking stalls?
Does the owner of the roll number that we're looking at receive any income from those parking stalls? No.
And then they're not capable of receiving any income from that, are they? They can't rent them out, they
No,
own
they're,
these.
it's owned by WAA.
To them, it's an expense, it's not a revenue.
Yeah, it's an expense for them to be there because of the foot traffic that comes through to rent the cars.
Okay. WAA has their own roll number, correct?
Uh-huh.
And it would include the parkade?
Yep.
Okay. The rents that you show on page 4, are you aware that the WAA basically covers all their expenses, everything from the tenants? Any property taxes they pay, any hydro, any maintenance, everything. So everything that you see in those rents includes the taxes for the terminal and the parkade. It includes a portion of the taxes for the maintenance, it includes the hydro, everything. Like all the tenants at WAA at the terminal area are.
So are you stating that, so any expense that happens at the airport, including airport, say runway maintenance or cleanup or anything like that, that's all gonna be included in the rental car?
Not the runway, but the expenses that are associated with the terminal. Like for instance, one of the ones we had on here was the Maple Leaf Lounge. That one there, back in 16, they actually sent me a breakdown of what their rent was.
Mhm.
And if it was $46 gross, their net was somewhere around $15, because everything else was expenses covered within the terminal.
There's two things there. So the first is, this is in the parkade, this is not in the terminal. So
But it's WAA, so it's the
But-
same.
it's, well, again, and the second thing is, we have not received any expenses from WAA, so we can't confirm any of that.
Okay. If the person would have responded to their mailer, would have there been any income?
Would there have been any income? No, probably not, because they're running a business out of there, of course. But this is in the parkade, these are the stalls that they're holding, so, like I said, if they were to vacate the parkade, they could turn around and rent those stalls. I mean,
Well, not
income-
these guys,
No, not these guys, but these stalls have value, and that's how you have to value them.
but the value is to WAA, it's not to these people.
I understand that, but they're the ones who are using it, right? They're paying WAA to be there.
Are you aware of any other car rental places that pay a rate for their stall, parking stall, based for their assessment?
I'm actually not aware of any other rental car place that's in a parkade.
Where I am, the Richardson building, there's a budget in there, and they have stalls in the parkade underneath the hotel, or beside the hotel. But they're valued just for that rental space, and the parkade is assessed separately, and the unit there is, the Richardson building is assessed based on the rent that they pay for that unit.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay, if I look at, there's different, Winnipeg New Drive, they've got one on the corner, well, they got one on Regent by the Visions there, across from Canadian Tire. They have a lot with their building, and they don't pay anything extra, it's based on the rent that building would generate, they don't pay.
That's the one on McPhillips you're talking about?
So there's one on McPhillips in Millay, but there's also one out on Regent.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Those
unit,
are-
they don't pay extra.
Those are owned by Don Vito Collision and Glass, so they're basically an umbrella corporation, so they're not gonna be charging them any stall.
Okay, but then you have one on Notre Dame, Ellis and Donald, I think it is, right by the Giant Tiger, or just beside the Giant Tiger to the north. I guess that would be Gary or Smith. That one there has a small, it's an old garage, and there's a budget for an enterprise in there, and they have the land, and they
Right.
pay based on the rent for that building. They don't pay any additional for the stalls.
So they have a lease for that building,
Yes.
so they'd be paying that through the lease.
But the land that they have there, they're not charged any additional, like this one, you're charging them for
Right.
the rental of the kiosk.
True.
And you're charging
Yeah.
them for the rental of the parking that they can't rent.
Right, But that's the whole point, because if they were to so the one you're talking about at Ellis.
Yeah.
So they're to vacate the one at Ellis, somebody else could come right back in and lease that out, right?
Right.
So if they were to vacate out of the parkade, then the WA can use that to rent those spots to customers coming in. So that it will generate income. It's
It's
just
not for these guys.
No, not for these guys, but the whole point, it is an income the stalls can
It's a
generate
business
income.
income, right?
They're paying to be there because it's a premium spot.
Right.
Because that's for their business, they wanna rent the car.
Okay, I just wanted to distinguish,
Yeah.
it's an expense, so it's not an income,
Okay.
right? So they're got an additional 100,000 or whatever it is for the parkade, 1,684,000, that is based on income that they don't get.
I think when you look at my page 4 and what they're actually paying to be there, all these rental cars that, you know, in excess of $1 million for some of them gross, that it must be pretty lucrative for them to be there.
Well, the Maple Leaf Lodge for Air Canada, Lounge for Air Canada, their gross rent's over $40-some, over $50. They don't make income on it, it's there for their customers.
Right, but they're not a car rental business, they're
No,
not a parkade.
but still, all these rents are pretty typical in the WAA. They're all in the $40 to $60 range, no matter where you rent. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, Brent, any questions?
Just one question, so is the parkade assessed separately to WAA?
I believe the parkade is assessed separately, yes. That's a good question, I don't know for sure, I would look into that.
Okay, that was my only question.
Maurice?
Yeah, I'm looking at your comparables. Are these all standalone parking lots,
These are actually parkades.
or parkades?
Yeah.
But are these sometimes related to a building next door?
Yeah, they would be related, they'd be attached to some buildings. Like the Lombard one, I think we were speaking of, on number 14, that would be attached to the
Okay.
hotel and the, I guess, the Richardson building,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Okay, because I was trying to see the difference here, like looking at your comparables. And I'm not sure I understand this properly on page 4. You mentioned that they're paying 114,000, while the others are paying substantially more, except,
Okay, I'll explain that again.
could you explain that again, please?
Yeah, sure. What I'm saying is that, so, the first 3 comparables, the first 2 are paying over $1 million.
Yeah,
The third one is paying $500,000, and the bottom one, that's what we're valuing.
Subject,
That's
yeah.
the subject, right?
Yeah.
At $709,000.
Mhm.
So all I'm saying is that if you're taking our net operating income, okay, and you basically subtract it from their actual gross income, what we're seeing is that if that's just the income, the 117,000, then they're having then technically they're spending 83.4% on expenses, is what I'm saying. Where if you look at all the other parkades in the example, none of them exceed 53%. So it gives you an idea of the expense difference, the ratios basically.
Okay, that's all, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay, Brent sort of touched on it. Do you know, are these stalls deducted from the airport?
Yeah, and that's a good fault. I believe they are, yes, I believe they are deducted from the airport when we value the parkade at the airport.
So it doesn't go
And
into?
we wouldn't be double counting it, basically.
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so although the airport authority receives the revenue for them, they're not, basically, doesn't go into their assessed value.
Right, because the airport's different in the sense of where every single, basically business in there has its own roll number. So the WAA wants them to be taxed on the realty level. They don't take, they basically don't want to tax it all as a whole. So every business, from the Maple Leaf Lounge to the tiny little kiosk where you buy a magazine, they all have their own roll number and they're all taxed on the realty level. So that's the same for these as well, so,
Okay,
yeah.
so although the WAA is receiving the rental income from the magazine kiosk, the taxes,
I don't know, again, we don't get their expenses, so I don't know how their expenses work when it comes to the taxes. All I know is that we send a tax bill out to these specific roll numbers for the realty level. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you. You can proceed, Doug.
Okay. I used to do the airport when I worked at the city, and then I did it when I was on this side. That was the old terminal, and they didn't have the parkade then. And you're right, when somebody gets a new roll number, they get a lease. And usually that section is taxed for the area that they lease. But I don't know if they've been, I've got 2 hotels that I do there too, the 4 Points and the Grand. And it's not clear, nobody's been able to make it clear to me, because they receive revenue from their stalls, from their hotel guests that stay there. But nobody's been able to say to me that, yes, those stalls have been removed from the
Okay, but
parkade. So I don't know, I don't like using the word double dip, but we don't know whether or not, because they don't get the income from it, like these guys don't. But anyway, I've done it completely different than how the city has done it. If I could ask the board to turn to, I don't have to go over the description, I think Steve did a good job there. If I could turn to page 6. Now, in my opinion, if this was an enterprise rental car at, say, Polo Park, and they were part of the shopping mall, the Polo Park would pay the property taxes based on the rent that they would get for that unit that enterprise would rent there. They're not charged any additional income or any extra assessment for their parking, because it's there for the clients. For this one here, the owners don't get anything from those parking stalls other than the right to use them. To them, it's an expense, it's not a revenue, but again, they can't collect revenue for their rental cars unless they have a space to put the cars. So I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some, but I don't think it should be done on an income value. So at the bottom of page, or on page 6, this is for the kiosk area. Now, the only difference between my valuation and the assessment department's for the kiosk, I'm using their rent, their vacancy, their cap rate is just that we're using 7% as opposed to 2% for the non-recoverables. For the parking structure, this is on the middle of page 7. The city is also has an income stream for parking stalls required for the U-Drive vehicles. Based on research I've done, this is the only U-Drive in Winnipeg that is assessed separately for the stalls required to park the rental vehicles. The balance of U-Drive companies are assessed on their leasable office area only. There is no additional income for the parking stalls. The owner of the subject property does not receive any income from the parking stalls. Their license is for parking the rental cars only. They are not allowed to rent out the stalls. The total land area for the stalls according to the lease in place is 14,100 square feet. For our valuation, we will value the office space by the income approach and add for the land value based on the direct sales comparison. We have found the following vacant sales. These are, the sales range in size from 10,325 square feet to a high of 23,201 square feet. Low sale price per square foot of $10.09 to a highest price of $43.96. The sale at 721 Portage is the only property in the subject area and has a July 16 sale price of $43.96 per square foot. Based on size and date of sale, we will use a land rate of $50. So based on that and 14,100 square feet, I come up with a value of $705,000 for the land. So on page 8 is a summary. Here's the leasable area of the rental car kiosk. Use 5% for vacancy, 7% for shortfall, $9 shortfall rate. We have an NOI of $14,990, capped at $675 is $222,073. I add in for the land value and I come up with a rounded value of $927,000. And that's my presentation.
Okay, questions?
Just a few. So this is an improved property,
Yes.
so it's not vacant land.
No, but if you're gonna do the land approach, you're supposed to do it as if vacant.
And again, I think we covered this, but if they were to vacate, the rental car companies, WA would be able to rent out these stalls, they can generate an income.
WA has control on it, they can, anytime they could, like, it's just a lease that they have with them or a license.
Would this be, would you consider this a premium spot in the city for parkade?
Oh, for sure.
Those are all my questions.
Okay, Brent,
I have no questions.
Maurice?
So basically, so I understand on your page 8, the city's on the office is at 234, you're at 222.
Correct.
Okay, and you're putting $50 square. I don't know how you arrive at your 14,100. There's a total of 17,933 now. I don't know how you work that figure. Have you got an explanation for it?
Well, if you look at page 4 of the assessor's brief, the very last one is the subject property. If you look there, it's got 84 parking stalls, each at 50.60 square meters for a total area of 14,099.90 square feet.
Well, that's where you take it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's all, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, a bit of a head scratcher this one.
Say the least.
I have no specific questions, so thank you for your presentations.
Sorry, I have to hand out the rebuttal package because he has a 7% in here. I'm not
Oh.
gonna go into it, just,
Yeah,
I have to hand it out.
this week in the cycle week.
Yeah.
I even forgot to bring mine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, okay. I've seen that before.
Yep. All right. Sure I'm not turning over the wrong thing. I'm turning over the page. So we will move on to file number 193730. Which is also in 1965 Wellington. So again, you're seeking a non-co-op on this one?
I will be seeking non-co-op on this one, yes.
Okay, so on the non-co-op then.
Okay. If you'll turn to my page 14 in my brief, please. So you'll see that the city of Winnipeg did send out a certified mailer. You can see the, on June 8, 2018, it says on the envelope itself, and national rental to 1380 Waverly Street, which is the billing address. There is the tracking number, which matches the envelope. The top right-hand corner, 235CA, and then you can see it here as well at 235CA. And page 15 shows the letter we send out with it, which is to 1380 Waverly Street. And then, of course, on page 16 is the blank mailer. Continues on 17 and 18. And I just want to also point out that we also send one out to the airport as well. So that would be on page 19. So we send one out to the airport and one out to the actual billing address, which is on Waverly Street. So they are non-compliant. They've been non-compliant for 2 years, as shown on page 2. So yeah, so we are seeking non-compliance.
Okay, any questions on the,
No, we're not gonna contest it.
not contested? Okay. Thank God we don't have to make another decision. Okay, so then you read out.
Okay. This is the same argument as the other one. It's enterprise again. And if I could ask the board to turn to page 6. The kiosk on this one is a bit larger. It's 1,017 square feet. And they have 88 parking stalls. We're using the assessors, for the kiosk area, we're using the assessor's rent, 2211, vacancy at 5, shortfall at $9 per square foot. Altus is using the 7% non-recoverable, and we're accepting the assessor's cap rate of 6.75. For the parking stalls, for the parking structure, again, we're suggesting that there is no income derived from these parking stalls, and therefore we've done it on the cost approach. On a direct comparison for the land. And the total land area for this one, according to the lease in place, is 14,771 square feet. So it's slightly larger than the last one we looked at. On page 7, I've gone with the same sales comparisons, and I've come up with a value of $50 a square foot for the subject, and based on 14,771 square feet, we have a value of $738,550. On page 8, here's a summary. For the kiosk, it's 1,017 square feet with a potential market income of $22,487, 5% vacancy, 7% non-recoverable. $9 for shortfall, we come up with a net income of $19,410, capped at 6.75 for a value of $287,550. We add for the vacant, for the land value, for the stalls, at $738,550, and we have a rounded value of $1,026,000. I'm suggesting that the value be reduced from $2,068,000 to $1,026,000. And I'm open to questions.
There'd just be the same line of question I had last time, if this is an
No
approved
need to
structure.
repeat the same question. Brent, any questions?
I have no questions.
Denise?
Well, I just have one that's been bugging me a little bit. When you're raising the issue of no income,
Correct.
when you rent a car, I'm sure that this is included in the cost of rental, because the parking is there. So,
Yes.
I don't know how you can compare that to other parking lots. That's where the problem I have.
Let's compare it to a McDonald's. The McDonald's is paying, their assessment is based on the size of their building. Doesn't matter whether they have 4-to-1, 2-to-1, or 8-to-1 land. They don't pay anything additional, it's all based on the rent that they would get for that building. And it doesn't matter how much they make on a Big Mac or a cheeseburger, it's their cost. They're not getting any additional income from that land, but they need it to derive the income to sell their burgers and pop. To me, it's no different than that. The rental income that they're getting is part of the business value, it's not part of the real estate. They can't make any money on those parking stalls as parking stalls. They can make money because they need a place to park their cars, but to me, that's business value.
Okay, tell you what's bugging me anyway.
Okay, I have thought of something, if this was not a separate roll number and everything went assessed to the airport authority,
Correct.
they would presumably be being taxed at the rate of $117 per stall.
I would think so, yes.
So why should the value of those stalls change? That would effectively become the rental value for that property when they rent it out to somebody else, would it not? If we were to look at a rental value,
Yeah,
they're
no, I
renting
don't
the.
disagree. If it was all one unit and we have one tax bill, then it would
Yeah.
all be assessed that way. But when you're assessing National Rental Inc. for a roll number where they don't get income, where they don't own those stalls, they can't rent those stalls out. The only control they have is at that little kiosk. And it's a license agreement, it's not even like ownership.
But if the stalls have a value,
They have a value, but I still don't know whether or not they're deducted from, I don't-
well, that's a big question. I mean, we don't want to
No.
double count.
My opinion is if this car rental was down the street, like if it was the Park and Fly, they rent space at the old Eaton's distribution center there on Berry. They don't pay additional for their parking stalls for those cars. They only pay for the portion of the building that they rent.
Did not pay rental on the land?
The land, because of the size of it, that building's over 600,000 square feet, there's no
Yeah.
additional land value. Like Bison Transport's in that building, and they rent land from WAA, just north of Sherwin there, and that's on a separate roll number, and
Yeah.
it's assessed.
Okay, that's an interesting, again, head scratcher. Okay, you can see.
But I have a subsequent question, because I'm looking at the leases here. They're up in the end of 17, and they usually go by about 6-year span. I would assume that they would not keep on going with the parking lot if they did not have a renewal of the lease, which is attached to the building, I would assume, but then automatically ties in the parking lot.
Yeah, these are a bit different, like, say for instance, if you got an Air Canada hangar down the street on Sargent, and it was built in the 60s, and you had a 40-year lease or a 50-year lease with renewals, once those leases are over, the airport, you either have to get rid of the building or commit it to and give it back to the airport, and then rent it back.
Mhm.
I did that for a RCMP hangar at the airport, where their lease was up, and the building went to WAA. So instead of doing a valuation on the building, I had to do a valuation on how much it would cost them to rent it. Because they had to rent their own building that they built, because the lease expired. This is different, they're just renting a rental space in the arcade.
But if you go to the city's information, it's probably the same as yours, the lease ends on the 31st of January 2017, so we're looking at the 1st of April 2018, something must have happened there.
Yeah, but see, there's the thing, even if the owner would have filled out the,
I'm just trying to get a handle on it, because
yeah, no, but even if the owner would have filled out the mailer,
yeah.
they wouldn't have no income. Because they're not getting income from that, they're not getting any rental income. And their expenses, if they filled it out correctly, would include their lease, their rent to have those spaces. You'll also notice that the airport also gets, is it 12 point, like part of that, like the last,
12.75.
yeah, they get 12.75, so that gross lease is actually based on a business value. You know, if a restaurant is paying so much per year for rent, and there's a clause in there that they pay additional for anything over a certain amount, like 7-Eleven have them, that's usually considered part of the rent. So in this case, you could consider it, but to me, again, it's all business value.
Some have one comparable as 0. So I don't know.
Yeah, one of them,
Yeah.
I don't know which one that would be.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not trying to make it difficult. I'm
No.
just trying to get a better handle on it.
Another question that pops into my head. In my experience, there's a couple of different models for airport car rentals. Some, like here, and Orlando's the same way, that they keep the cars in the parking structure next to the terminal building.
Right.
Others, you hop on the bus and get taken somewhere off-site.
Yeah.
And now, so those off-site, they would be presumably valued at,
To the owner of that site.
yeah.
See, in my opinion, these should be valued to the airport, because they're getting income for them.
Okay, all right.
I have another question. So, have these ever been appealed before?
They were appealed last year, or for 18, I think.
Was it
18 or 19,
It is
then
19, it's just 1 year.
Yeah, and it was not
It is not
compliant on
compliant,
both.
so on both.
Oh, okay. So, my other question is the parkade under appeal?
And that's part of WAA.
I can't answer that question, I don't know, I didn't deal with it, so.
If it was, I hope they go for non-compliant.
Okay, those are my questions.
Okay, yeah, again, we can proceed then.
Sure, let's show like, very similar to the last one, the assessed value is $2,068,000. I just really wanna look at page 4 here. The subject is actually the second one down on this page. So what they are paying is over $1 million. They're paying $1 million to be there. like, that's pretty interesting in itself. So the income that they're producing from being in this prime location must be fairly high. Again, we don't have that information, but that says a lot in itself right there. It's very valuable to be in this spot. And as we talked about before, this is an improved property. It's a parkade. They have parkade stalls. So carrying on from your question, if you were to just value this as one roll number, like just WAA, they would be charging them per stall because they're taking up income from them. So that's something that we have to look at, understand. This is a parkade. They have the stalls. If they weren't in those stalls, they'd be charging a very premium rate for them. So this is not land, this is an improved property. So, again, that's pretty much all I have to say for this. So I feel that $2,068,000 should be confirmed for this property. Thank you.
Okay, any,
Just one quick question. If I'm in the Richardson building and I got a 800 square foot office and I'm, say, a commodities exchange or something, and I make $10 million a year, it's still gonna be assessed based on that $800 square feet and how much rent the building can get, right?
It's a totally different concept, though. It's not the same where these stalls generate money on their own, right? Each stall by itself. So an office is completely different. It's leased long term. I don't see the same comparison.
I guess I guess the fact is, so you agree that the owner couldn't rent these stalls out?
No,
The
but-
owner of that roll number?
But it's because if you have an office there in the Richardson building, you don't have people constantly walking through your door wanting to rent your office space, right? These people are using their commodity there. They have their cars there. They have constantly people coming in wanting to take their cars. That's the difference.
But if I'm at McDonald's, I'm hopefully having lots of people coming in and wanna take my food.
McDonald's.
You know, but they've got that land, they're not accessed separately for the land or the people that use their business park.
Like which McDonald's? Like
Any McDonald's, like any standalone McDonald's.
Yeah, they own that property, right?
Yeah, they pay taxes based on how much that property would sell for. These guys can't sell that parkade.
Yeah, well, that's part of the whole airport. It's being in the airport, that's the land lease part of it. There's lots of buildings on there. They can't sell their land, they sign that lease.
Cause it's not theirs.
Right.
Yeah, okay, that's, we could go around. and
Yeah.
around.
yeah, certainly can. All right. Thank you for giving us something to think about.
Questions, are we waiting for?
Oh, okay, question, all right.
Who goes first?
You can go first, you're anxious, you got a question.
We know that Enterprise owns a number and they own National and others.
Yeah, they own National, yeah.
Yeah, and what about the two other, because I'm looking at the comparables on your page 4.
Yeah,
Are the others owned by Enterprise?
I'm not too sure about that.
I'm not sure.
I know they own the National and they have their own enterprise there. I don't know if they own the other two.
Well, they own others, because I just rented a car in Moncton,
Yeah.
and it was Enterprise, and
Yeah.
it was a totally different name. So
Yeah.
I don't know how many they have.
Yeah,
So I just wondered if the comparables were in fact comparables.
Well,
When
they're-
we're
they're-
looking,
they're-
when we're
I mean,
looking at
like,
Enterprise.
They're comparable in the sense that they're all rental car companies.
Yeah,
So they're all in the same kiosk.
Yeah.
They're all paying rent to, or basically have a lease with WAA, so they're comparable in that sense.
in that sense.
Yeah, so I'm just showing you what they're actually paying, what their gross, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's my only question.
I have no questions.
Okay, so, all right, thank you very much, and that concludes today's hearing.
Thank you.
Oh.